אחכה לך לשמוע כל שתאמר לראות כל שתעשה You know, we finished off basically with you setting the scene for the whole story of Esther, and I was just thinking just how appropriate in a sense those words are, because Esther had to be willing to do what Mordechai was asking of her. And you know, as I think you'll probably share with us, that there were a lot of things that she, in a sense, gave up in order to do that. And so when we come to that place and we just say, Lord, I'm going to wait, I wait for you, even though we're not actually, the story doesn't mention God, as we mentioned that, but there is still that place of submitting ourselves to the will of God and saying, I'm here. Like, what are you saying? What are you doing? I'll do it, you know.
And you know, even more than that, you know, before we say the more than that thing, but we also need to pay attention to the fact that Mordechai, he sent Esther before all the bad things happened. Right? I mean, he sent Esther basically, I mean, just as a safety for a rainy day, right? I mean, let's think about it. How did Esther end up in the palace, right? I mean, Achashverosh had a feast, right? He had a feast, and then he basically wanted to. He called Vashti. I don't know how do you say her name? Vashti. Yeah. So Achashverosh had a feast. And then we're talking about, I mean, not just a feast like one night and people went home. These were like days, right? These were like days after days after days. And then we also get, I mean, just for us to get the idea of those feasts, I mean, they were. Is gorging the right word? Yeah, like people do you know what totally. I mean? It was. You know, it was vulgar. Yes. Okay, like drinking and meat and like really, it was very vulgar, and like days after days, and we also get a very strong implication. I mean, a hint from Mordechai, who wrote the book. He said that they were eating from dishes of many dishes, or I hope that's how it's out. It's in the first chapter of the book, and our tradition says that they were eating using the vessels from the temple, from first temple. They were using those vessels. These were like the dishes of many dishes. That was his hint to say they were doing that. And we know that the Jews also took part in those feasts because they wanted to show solidarity to the king.
Right.
And they were
pretty assimilated.
They were assimilated, not in a sense of like marrying out and all that, but they tried to be integrate. They tried to integrate, with the Persian society, and they tried to show their solidarity to the king. They were very afraid. They were afraid of being persecuted.
Right.
So they did all that to show their loyalty, and they came and they feasted with the king using the vessels from the temple, and we take it as a hint that was also their punishment. The whole story. Haman coming, and all that. That was a punishment for that act. They sold.
So for the degree to which they were willing to integrate,
exactly,
which was compromising,
and they did that in order not to be persecuted, but in the end they were persecuted to be all extinct in one day. So, but that's again, these are like little things because the scroll is full of these questions that we have to ask ourselves, and knowing that. And knowing the reality of back then really helps you to understand, okay, so why did this happen and why did that happen? It really sheds light. But so Achashverosh basically invited, he didn't invite, he commanded Vashti to come because he wanted to show her beauty. But what does it mean to show her beauty? Right? But everyone knew what the queen looked like. Right? They didn't need to see her face. He wanted to show a different side of her body, right? To everyone who was there. So he was a very vicious, king. He wasn't so innocent, and he wasn't. Sometimes when you see like, do you know what a purim spiel is?
No.
Spiel in Yiddish is like a game or an act or like a gig.
Yeah. Yes.
But so Purim Spiel is basically telling the story of the scroll with just telling it, like just acting it, like a theater play, and they do it with humor and things like that. So just like it's a Purim Spiel. And quite often, Achashverosh is presented to be in Yiddish they say a narisher king. Narisher is like fool, like a stupid king. Like he had no wisdom. Everyone could fool him around, and Haman could do whatever. But that wasn't the case. We're talking about a king of 127 states. How stupid can you be?
Right.
It's not. So we of course understand that he wasn't that stupid. But and we have stories by tradition and from history about Vashti, the things that she did to the Jewish women of back then. We're not going to go into that, but she wasn't so innocent as well. In any case, they had a fight, and he executed, right? He executed Vashti, and then he looked for a new queen. Right? And then this is before Haman. Haman comes chapter 3 in the book. This is like we're talking about chapter 2. And then Mordechai sent Esther as a safety net,
right?
Just for a safety for a rainy day that might come before Haman became so close with the king, and before he came up with his schemes, and he sent her, and she was in the palace already before Haman was, before he came up with his ideas.
You kind of wonder if Mordechai he probably kept his ear open.
He kept
probably
all the time.
Yes.
But he was looking. We said he was the minister for Jewish matters. He knew that the Jews would not be able to live safe and sound in that under this government. He knew that. Right. He didn't know about Haman's. He didn't know about everything which is about to come. But he did it as a safety net. So he sent her there. Again, he didn't tell anything about. He said, go. We might need it We might need it one day. Who knows?
Who knows?
Yeah, who knows? Who knows what might happen? So she went and she got in, right? And she got in. Can we actually say that Esther was so beautiful, right? Was she so beautiful that the king basically wanted her? Was she, or did God made her to be? Because God had a plan, obviously, and they were pawns in that game, and God made her get in. We're talking about thousands of women. They took all the virgins in the city. This was a huge city. And out of all these young ladies, he chose Esther. I mean, and who in the end she found herself saving the whole people. I mean, this is all God's hand. And this is before Haman basically came to, before we know anything about Haman. So we can clearly see that there was a hand basically, leading the whole process, leading the whole story. And we said in the last chapter we talked about the word Megillah.
Right.
Megillah is a scroll. Now, when we say the scroll of Esther, we say it in Hebrew, Megillat Esther. Now, these words are very important. Esther is, of course, her name, and Megillah, that's a scroll. But Megillah it comes from the word legalot. What's legalot in Hebrew is to discover, to reveal, to find out, to give information. That's legalot. And what is Hester? Esther, her name is
hidden.
Exactly. Yes. Hester is hidden.
Yes.
That's what it means. So we're basically revealing the hidden thing. That's what the book is about. God's name is not mentioned anywhere in the scroll, but our job in the reading it is to find His name.
Yes.
Is to find it. So even the compound Megillat Esther, the scroll of Esther, it literally means revealing the hidden.
Wow. The
hidden thing.
Right.
And that's what the book is about. Because I mean, the book is basically our story.
Right.
Our story all throughout history. And we have to see God's hand, even when it's hard and difficult, and we find these rules basically, and persecutions and blood labels and all these terrible things happening. We have to find God's, let's not talk about the Holocaust, we have to find God's hand in the process, and what led to what. So and only after that scene is being set, only then we start to hear about Haman. Haman and all the things that he basically wanted to do.
Right. Then we were talking about this a little earlier, and you were talking about the connection between Haman and Agag. And it's just it seems to me you also, when you were telling the story about Shmuel asking Shaul to wipe them out in a day, we come back to the same phrase now. You didn't do it back then,
and now it comes back to you.
Now it comes back to you, and it's being turned around on you
in the same way.
In the same way.
In the same way, completely. Exactly. In the same way. Even hundreds of years later, right? God is His was, is, and will be. So, and I think one of my favorite verses in the book is I think it's the beginning of chapter either 5 or 6, where it says that during that night, the king's sleep.
Yes.
We have a phrase in Hebrew that when someone cannot sleep.
Yes.
So his sleep is basically wandering from one place to the other. Do you know, to wander from one place to the other?
That's very true, actually. When you can't sleep, that's often what's going on.
It's like your sleep is wandering from one place to the other. Okay, it's like it's navigating somewhere there. Okay, but it's definitely not with you. And that's what the verse basically means in Hebrew, that the king's sleep wandered around. I mean, he couldn't sleep basically. Yeah. But the way it is written in the Megillah, and also in the original Megillah, the way it is written is the word for a king is melech, okay, and the king is ha-melech, right? And in Hebrew we don't have capital letters,
right?
But in the original scroll, and also the way we write the scroll up until today, the definite article hey ha-melech, the king, is very capitalized. So if I show you an original scroll, I think it might even show in your Bible here, then you would see that the hey is meaningfully larger than the other letters, because we want to say whose sleep wandered? Was it Achashverosh's sleep?
Yes.
Definitely, it's the king's sleep that wandered. He could not sleep because Haman already came up with his idea, and now God basically, he couldn't sleep. We know the verse from the Psalms. Right? He shall no slumber, no sleep.
Yes.
And his sleep basically went wandering around. He could not sleep that night, and then we see the turnaround. I mean the twist in the plot.
Yes.
That night it happens.
Yes.
All of a sudden, Achashverosh, he couldn't sleep, and then he asked, "Okay, bring me the book. Bring me my memories.
Yes.
I want to see." And then they read out the memory about Mordechai. Saving him from Bigtan and Teresh when they wanted to poison him.
Right.
Just by a coincidence, right? Just by chance, they read up that story, and then he says, "Okay, so what happened with that Mordechai?" And then they said, "Well, basically nothing." And then he said, "Okay, we need to do something about that." And Haman is there outside of the palace, right, building the tree to hang Mordechai. And then he tells Haman, he says, "Listen, what should I do with someone
Haman, right?
Yeah, and then Haman says, "Oh, you need to give him a royalty, royal clothing, and put him on a horse, and you should take him and yell out, this is what we need to do with the person that the king basically wants to respect." And then he says, "Okay, so do everything you said to Mordechai." This is the twist in the plot,
because Haman thought it was going to be for him.
Exactly. Right. He thought who's closer to the king than I? Correct. So then he came up with this idea, and in the end he had to do the same thing for Mordechai. So this is the twist in the plot that night. Yeah,
but that's so beautiful, that the whole sense of the idea that this is happening, and that God Himself, He doesn't slumber, He doesn't sleep. He's always watching over Israel. He's always watching over His people, and that's
there is a maybe we'll end just with that. There is a very interesting teaching from the Talmud that it's from the Talmud, or maybe later from that. It's a commentary. We basically relate the story of Haman. We take that story and we relate it with the story after golden calf.
After the
golden calf, yeah.
Golden calf, yeah.
So after that sin, God asked. He said to Moses, "Let me, and I would wipe them all out." That's what God wanted to do. But it's quite weird because God is saying to Moses,
to let him?
"Let me, and I shall do it." Okay, and this thing happens again after the sin of the spies. After the sin of the spies, right? God is saying to Moses again, "It's like, hold me back. Just like hold me, because I'm gonna do it. But I need you." It's as if God is asking for permission.
Yes. Wow.
And of course, God doesn't have to ask permission from anyone.
Mm-hmm.
But there's a nice commentary that links the two stories, and that commentary says, God basically metaphorically told Haman, "Do you think? Can you even think that you can wipe them out? I couldn't." I couldn't. Many years ago in the desert, I couldn't. I had to ask Moses, "Let me, and I shall do it." God, it obviously seemed like God had something that prevented him from doing that. He obviously couldn't because he didn't.
Wow.
He said, "I want to," but he couldn't. So he basically told Haman metaphorically, "Can you even think that you can wipe them out? I couldn't. How can you think that you can?"
Interesting. Well, that really opens up a whole thought about the role that we play in terms of what happens. We talk about intercession, about standing in the gap, about can we actually stay God's hand? Can we actually stop Him from doing something? And
I think we can, of course.
Through
our prayers, of course.
Through our prayers.
Of course. Otherwise, what's the point of praying?
Yeah.
And it's as simple as that. I mean, of course we can.
Well, we need to talk about that because that means the whole thing of...
It's not only that we can, we do it.
We do
it all the time. We do it all the time. I mean, when we pray about something, then and we are being answered, then of course we're doing it.
Right. Oh, okay. We've got to start on that one when we come back. Okay. This is good. Okay, so we'll see you in our part 3 of this section on Purim and the second month of Adar.
Thank you.